Welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. This is the place to learn about careers from the people who are actually doing the work every day. I'm your host, Brian Bratt, and this week's guest is 2013 Buren graduate Heather Henderson, a senior public relations specialist for Cardinal Health. In this episode, Heather shares how a typical day looks, why she has always been interested in communications, the difference between working for an agency or a company like Cardinal Health, the importance of maintaining work-life balance, and much more. Whether you are interested in a career in communications or are still exploring your options, I hope that what Heather shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Heather, thank you very much for joining us today. And I'd love to hear how a typical day looks for a senior public relations specialist at Cardinal Health.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Brian. Good to see you. Good to be here. And so I would say that the day varies. It's kind of challenging to put it in one bucket of this is a typical day. And that's kind of something I like about being in PR, being in communications. But just to give you a kind of lay of the land of the different areas that I could touch in a certain day. So from an external communications perspective, I support we'll just say several leaders across our technology organization, executive leaders. So if there is a media relations request, so a reporter reaches out from the Wall Street Journal, they want to hear from our CIO about how the technology landscape in healthcare has changed and shifted over the past year. I would work with her to prep her for that media interview. I would communicate with the reporter to ensure no difficult questions are going to be asked and just make sure that that interview is going to go smoothly. So that might be something on the media relations side of things. Or say one of the executives I support is speaking at a industry conference or a leadership conference. I'll also work with them to prep them for that event. And then with both of those opportunities, we make sure to collaborate across the organization to amplify these efforts. So meaning we would do social media content on our enterprise channels and on the leaders channels to promote their involvement or promote the article, or from an internal side of things, working to promote it in internal newsletters, ensuring that all audiences, employees, customers, what have you, are seeing that content.
As you think about all of those different things, and how often are you being reached out to by publications and so forth? Is that a once a week thing? Is that a once every 3 months thing? How much does
Yeah,
that take your time?
great question. I would say now, just given difference in landscapes and what reporters are interested in, it's probably once every 6 months for the technology side of things. Now,
Okay.
I'll say that Cardinal Health, in wanting to talk to our CEO is a little bit different. They're getting outreach way more frequently. But for my job, not super often. So in addition to doing that, I also support from an internal perspective. So say that our chief technology officer wants to meet with all his employees across his organization, which could be 3,000 employees. He wants to get in front of that team on a quarterly basis. So I am making sure that I'm collaborating with him to schedule those meetings. We call them town halls at Cardinal. They vary at different organizations, but schedule them, plan the content, making sure that his leadership team is aligned and that they have a pulse of what their employees want to hear about. So that's something that I might have my hands on. Something else would be organizational announcements. So at large organizations, there's so many shifts in organizational structures and different leaders coming onto the team, and sometimes sadly people getting let go. So I have the joy of working on those types of communications and making sure that they're communicated accurately and timely for when things are being moved around. And then I feel like, something that comes up daily right now for me, because I do support technology, is artificial intelligence.
Mm.
So I am working the individual at Cardinal Health that kind of leads up our AI strategy. I work closely with her to really, this is kind of figure it out as you go. I'm sure if you've heard about this or others have heard about AI, we're learning as we go in all
Right,
areas,
right.
all organizations. So making sure that we are communicating about what we're doing, sharing examples of how we're using AI, but then also finding opportunities to educate and train our employees on these tools and how they might eventually impact their role. And something that we always emphasize is AI is a complement, not a competitor. So it's something that we envision supporting our teams, but not something that's going to take away people's jobs in the near or long-term future, as far as I have a pulse on.
Right.
So I know that was a lot. So
Well,
let me know if you have any questions.
well, that is a lot, and but again, I think it goes back to you said public relations and communications professional. So I mean, you are working with the public, you are working with the people at Cardinal Health. Like you said, you are in contact with a lot of people every day, and bring that all together to make Cardinal Health, a positive place to work, and then
Yeah.
obviously promoting that image. And again, obviously, it's not just an image, it's the reality, but promoting
Right.
that reality to the public. And how do you deal with the pressure of that? I mean, you make one little misstep in
Mhm.
something, people are going crazy. How do
Yeah.
you deal with that? Or did your college degree prepare you for that? Or how does that work?
Yeah, I would say one from the college degree perspective, you certainly discuss crisis communications, crisis being if something bad is happening at the company and we need to communicate that, which can get dicier and scarier
Right,
from a
right.
communication side of things. Um, and you're talking through these situations, but I feel like you really don't learn until you get into a role or an internship and kind of learn the different dynamics of a company. Um, I would say, and it varies based on what industry and company you're working at, since Cardinal Health isn't super consumer facing. So let's say like a Nike
Right.
versus Cardinal. I would imagine the external lens at Nike is a little bit more um, anxiety producing as a communications professional, considering they're so consumer focused. While we have that at Cardinal Health, I find myself being more delicate with the internal communications. Um, and simply because that's you are more transparent, are even more honest with your employees. And so finding the delicate balance of when to communicate, how often to communicate. I think it's just making sure that when it comes to handling the pressure for me is collaboration across all the different stakeholders involved in a specific communication or initiative.
Right.
I'm always checking my boxes and dotting my I's, just to make sure that what I'm communicating is approved and makes sense and we're thinking through every angle.
When you were in high school, what were your post high school plans? Did you
Yeah.
think you were going to go into communications, or was that something that came about later?
Yeah. So I remember when we did the project in your class, I shadowed a radio station.
Hmm.
I don't even remember the one in Finley, but I clearly had some type of interest in this realm. But when I went to Ohio State, I was undecided. I was going to go down the social work route. And then as I was starting to learn really what that looks like, I was like, I am way too sensitive of a person to be in that field and take that home with me. And so I was working for a magazine on campus, and a lot of the girls were studying strategic communications. And so that kind of opened my eyes to that degree and the path that I could take. So I would say it wasn't something that I really knew about in high school and the reality of what that trajectory would take you on, but it shifted in college when I learned more about it.
Okay. You talk about many of the girls in
Mhm.
communications. I have no idea. Is it pretty much a 50-50 split, men and women? Is
Yeah.
there go one way or the other? What can you tell us about
Yeah.
that?
Good question. I would say on our team, there's more women than men, but there's certainly men on the team. Certainly not 50-50, but I worked with men and women throughout
Yeah.
my career.
Okay. Okay. Now, you've talked a lot about the communications internally, uh, communications externally. You talked a little bit about social media. Are you doing things with video, social media, all of that all the time? How many people are you working with to get all those things done? Because I can't imagine you're
Hmm.
doing all of those things for Cardinal Health technology sector. So I guess what other options are there for people within communications beyond maybe what you are doing personally?
Yeah, good question. So our team right now, just to put it into perspective, and this is for a Fortune 15 company, so very, very large organization. You'd be surprised to know that my technology organization comms team is 4 people, and then our social media team is 2 people.
Okay.
So um, when it comes to an initiative or an event that I want to promote, I'm the one, on the back end kind of planning the event. Again, like I said, making sure the leader's prepped and what have you. And then we're looping in our social media partners to inform them. I'm often crafting the copy. They're working with our creative services team to put together the visuals. So video, social media graphics, audiograms, different types of things. So I'm still drafting and writing the copy for the social media content, but not so much the collateral and planning it into the broader social media calendar, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Writing. You obviously just brought that up. Is that
Yeah.
something you always enjoyed, or is that something that you more found that interest later after high school, or even during or after college?
Yeah, I always enjoyed writing. And I mean, I was 5 years old writing poems in like a composition notebook. So like I always enjoyed the creative side of writing. And I think that's honestly what intrigued me about communications. Because like I said, I was writing for that magazine. And I was like, oh, there's jobs where you can use your skills and interests and passion for writing to bring that into your day to day.
Mhm. As you think about positives and negatives of the career, obviously no career is
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. Sounds like you're
Hmm.
doing a lot of things that you really enjoy. I guess what would you say is the best part for you? And then what are some of those things that maybe aren't the most enjoyable, but you tolerate and that people who might want to enter this field should be aware of before they start down that path?
Yeah, I would say what I enjoy most is what I said at the front of the call is that every day is a little bit different. So it's nice it doesn't get mundane and repetitive. And also that a big focus of the role is building relationships, whether I'm building relationships with a reporter, an executive, collaborating across the team. I like that aspect of ensuring that yeah, you're able to communicate also from just to like building relationships to see how you can achieve a goal together.
Right.
In terms of things that can be challenging, so again, it varies in terms of what company you're going into. But my specific case, I am not an expert in technology. It takes me a long time to understand the back end of blockchain and AI and some of the things that I've worked on. And so I think that's an aspect where sometimes you're learning about things where you don't wake up every day where you're like, yay, just can't wait to learn about AI again today, There's that aspect. And then there's also um, communications, because not a lot of people know exactly what it is. There can be misconceptions about who you are in the role at a company, right? And so expectations of what you need to be doing for different people vary. And so you really have to level set with people and be able to communicate what you do as a role, what you're prioritizing. And that can sometimes be challenging. Would I say like that's a deal breaker? No, but it's just something that we experience.
You talked a little bit earlier about internships, and you had quite a few different internships. You've worked at Cardinal Health and also worked at DV Siegenthaler.
Yeah.
Um, How have all of those experiences worked together to get you to where you are today? What was it like to, leave Cardinal Health and then come back? Was that
Yeah,
probably made it a little bit easier to come back just because you had that
yeah.
experience? So all of those experiences you've had, how have they helped get you to where you are?
Yeah, I'll start with the college piece. So, strategic communications can be looked at as a degree of like you're just getting by. I had a lot of Ohio State football players in my classes. They're just trying to get a degree and play football. Um, but I say that to emphasize you can't really just go through college and coast and not be involved and not have an internship in this field because you really need to demonstrate how you're applying what you're learning in the specific company, industry, whatever you're looking towards. So I was really committed to getting internships and learning in the field because I just felt like it was absolutely necessary to get a job after college. So I think all of those individual internships played a role in getting me to where I was, one, because I had them, but then two, it opened me up to networking with communication professionals across Columbus. That one of my mentors at the internship connected me with my first boss at Cardinal. I think that's often the necessary component, especially now when you're looking for an opportunity to have connections and to have deep, deep experience. From the starting at Cardinal, leaving and going to the agency and coming back perspective. So, agency, the difference is so you're in-house or your agency. At an agency, you're supporting 6 to 8, it varies, but 6 to 8 different clients with a lot of these communication tactics, right? Social media, media relations, internal communications, events. But you really have to be able to shift from company to company and learn more breadth than depth than you would in-house. And so if I were to recommend to anybody interested in communications is if you are wanting to explore what agency is like, I would do that as your first job out of college because it's great when you're young because it's fast paced. You have to be on 24/7, most of the time. And I think for me, that was the kind of light in the back of my head, like this isn't actually something that I want to do long term because I started at Cardinal and knew what it was like to be in-house and have more of a balance and be supported by a large organization. So that was kind of my desire to come back to in-house, and it did make the development and the growth easier leaving and then coming back.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I had no idea that that was like the agency that,
Yeah,
yeah, you're working for a bunch of different companies at the same time. And okay, that's interesting. And that's
exactly.
good for people to know that there are those two different situations out there. Okay.
Yes, yes.
You talked about balance there a little bit and how important that is. And I've, looking at your LinkedIn profile, you are part of the PRSA of Central Ohio. You're the vice president of programs. You are a registered yoga instructor. How do those things help you in your field? How do they help you maintain that balance that is
Hmm.
really important in any work?
Yeah. So PRSA, Public Relations Society of America, that is an opportunity to be connected and network with other PR professionals in Columbus, which is helpful, right? Like I mentioned, just being able to ideate on ideas, learn about trending topics in PR, etc. I would say yoga and teaching yoga is more of my passion to be able to incorporate that sense of groundedness and balance throughout my life. I think that it's so incredibly important to find opportunities to be present and to be still, especially regardless if it's communication, you're a doctor, you're a teacher, whatever it is that you're doing. I think that's absolutely necessary because it's easy to get on this wheel of to-dos. And so yoga for me is an opportunity to reset, to get grounded, to get present. I teach every week. It's on Wednesday. And so it's kind of like my midweek, mid-evening, kind of like, okay, hit the point, and now like the weekend's coming. But yeah.
I think it's interesting you brought up passion there. And, again, I think sometimes people say, well, my career should involve my passion. Would
Mm-hmm.
you say that communications is your passion, or I don't know. Can you explain that? And that
Yeah,
wasn't a question I
yeah.
planned to ask, but just you
All
talking about
good.
that, I think that's interesting, the way you said that.
Yeah, there's a quote. I'm not going to be able to say it off the top of my head, but essentially the consensus is instead of, thinking about what is my purpose or what is my passion for life, consider like, what am I passionate and what am I curious about right now? And knowing for me, that helped shift my perspective to thinking like, I need to figure out exactly what I want to do and my purpose for my life. And then I just got to go because it shifts and we shifts as humans and our life shifts. And so it's instead getting a little bit more narrow on the moment that you're in now and what's lighting you up in the moment. So with that being said, I would say um, communications in my job, I wouldn't really consider my passion. I think it's something that supports me financially, supports me as a professional, supports me living the life that I really long to live. And that's absolutely necessary. And I'm so grateful to be where I am today. But then I also think it's necessary to carve out space for whatever in this time frame really lights you up. For some people, that is their job, and I think that's incredible, but I think it varies by person to person.
Right. And you obviously have talent and skills in communications. It's not like it's not a passion, but
Yeah,
again, there's that balance. So yeah, that's interesting the way that you said that. I really like
yeah.
that. And maybe you've already started answering my last question, but what do you know now about careers that you look back and say, man, I wish I had known that when I was in high school?
I think there's this thought that you're in high school, you know what you want to do, you go to college, you know what you want to do, and then you go do it. Again, that can be the case for people. I think and I think that for me set this like gripping towards figuring it out in college and stressing a little bit too much about making sure I have a job, which serves me well. Stress can be good in certain cases. I
Right.
am where I am, and that's a good thing. Um, but I wish there was somebody there just saying like, it's okay if you don't have it figured out right now. Like there's some people that are 40 that are still figuring it out, that shift careers, that do different things. Life is going to change. You're going to have different interests and passions throughout your life. So um, trust
Yep.
trust that you're going to be guided and led towards opportunities that are fruitful for you, so long as you're showing up and taking the action. That kind of personal responsibility aspect is important too. You
Right.
can't just be drugged through the mud to where you want to go. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. That's the best I have for
Well,
you
yeah.
right
And
now.
I think, yeah, a lot of students do often feel like, oh, I have to have it all figured out. No, you don't. There's a lot more to life.
Yeah,
Figure out what your first step's going to be, and then based on that first step, figure out what the second step's going to be, and so
yeah,
forth. So it's
exactly.
definitely a process. There's no doubt about that. So, well, I really appreciate you sharing this. You're my first communications person to share about your career, and I know there are probably some students out there that have skills and have interests similar to what you had when you were in school, that I hope they will look at this as a potential career option. So, Heather, good luck on your career journey, and thank you very much for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you.
If you liked this Joust About Careers episode, you can explore previous episodes and highlights to learn about even more careers of Van Buren graduates. To be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with us, and we hope you will continue to prepare for your future by learning just about careers.